All right. Hello, Fortinas, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is January 21st, 2026, and we are less than a week away. I am prayerful. I am hopeful that we won't have another full-length teaching like this. That the next time you're listening to something new from me, it's because we're talking face to face in the presence of the Lord, either prayerfully accounted worthy to be standing before him in the lowest room of the third heaven, or when he returns. When he returns from the wedding and we're at that banquet meal after the wedding, and he's there with us, he's serving us, he's revealing a greater, deeper understanding to give us what we need as we go to serve him in the time of the end. Brothers and sisters, it's awesome. It's definitely an intense time. We've been here before. For those who have been around for a bit, it's not the first time we've had a high watch date, but we have never had a high watch date like this. When I was talking to some brothers and sisters. I had a Zoom Bible study with one of our brothers on Saturday. I was talking with our brother Olu the other day. Then I was talking about it with my wife. When you put the whole picture together of what we've been revealed, this entire storyline that's developed and revealed deeper and deeper over the last 8 years, man, the dual calendars, from the mirror revelation to what was revealed in the dual calendars, and how it plays out, and the mysteries within the gospels revealing that the dual calendars are right, that the open books, the chapters to years revealed that they're right because of the revelation of the dual calendars, and counting it all the way back from Christ, and counting it all the way forward based on Luke chapter 3 and Luke chapter 4 from the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, and counting these things in the Jubilees going forward. The only place we can be in, this is just a little side note as we're opening, the only place we can be in, let me show you this. This is what I was explaining to some people. There's a 6-year period, okay, after, and there's a 6-year period before. So there is a total, plus this one, there is a total of 13 years. 6 years before and 6 years after, compared to the one we have to be in, okay? There's a total of 13 years total. In a 13-year span, there's only one place that the pre-trib and the beginning of everything can land in, and that is what's called the 8th year, which is the first year of every 7 that follows every 7. But do you know what's awesome? You want to know what's really incredible? We know that the end of days is what? The big picture is 21 years to the final Jubilee year, which is the 22nd year. Okay? It's the last 3 sevens, but these are the preparation of people being prepared. Then you got 7 years of seals and 7 years of trumpets. Well, what is the 8th year? You see? What is the 8th year? It's literally the first year of the next set of 7, which is the first year of the 14 years, of which in it the 50 days and the escape will happen. Okay? All of the above things, and we're going to chat on some of those things today. Okay? All of the above things have to happen in what's called the year 8. But do you realize in the revelation of the end of days being 22 years total, it's not only the 8th as being the first and the 8th as being the first, it's literally the 8th in the big picture. Do you know what this is also? This is the story of creation. The first 7,000, the second 7,000, the third 7,000 that were in, or to the Lord God, they were 7 days, 7 days, and 7 days. The spirit in that creation, then the light creation, and then the flesh that we're living in now. It's the story of all of creation. You guys know the story. It's a fractal, right? Everything is a fractal. And to see and to understand that in an entire span of, 13 years, it could have only landed on this one. It couldn't have, if it was 7, it wouldn't work. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the other way, it wouldn't have worked. It has to have landed on the first year of the last 14, which is the 8th year. And there has to only be 2 sets of 7 remaining before the final Jubilee. We didn't make this up. The revelation revealed this had to be the case. But how did we find this? Oh, that's right. From counting all the way back from Scripture, from Luke chapter 3 and 4, from the birth of Christ to his baptism, when he began to be 30, being the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar. And we just went back to the history records and then looked at the timing of when Jesus declared the Jubilee in Luke chapter 4. Brothers and sisters, the time we are in is, we've never seen this before. And we're going to be talking about that because we're going to be talking, this whole thing has a focus on Iran. Okay? And we're going to be talking tonight too, of course, about the 70 years having to end. So we didn't just get this count from the dual calendar. We got the count of 70 years of Jerusalem from when they got it in 1950 and how you were to count it from Leviticus 19. It's this revelation of the dual calendar and all of the mysteries of these little parts and these little pieces that had us questioning, yeah, what about this? But how about that? Why John chapter 8 in chapters to years? Oh, now it makes sense because it's the 8th year. It's in that 8th year that it's all going to happen. It's crazy. To go into it, even what we're going to be talking about here tonight, it's every piece that we're going to talk about, we've done teachings on that are 2-3 hours long. On every single part and piece that we're going to go through here tonight, we've done hours of teaching on all of the parts. But now we're going to start seeing what is a big thing we've been trying to understand. What is somebody we've been trying to figure out in this timeline? Okay? Does it mean we're going to see all of the events that we're going to talk about here tonight? No, of course not. Not for the pre-trib. Okay? But we're seeing it now develop and reveal like never before. Like never, ever before. And it's not just because there's the rioting going on, right? The protesting going on in Iran. It's because who's now stepping forward? Who's now stepping forward? And why? Because of conversations he has had with the leaders around him. It's incredible. It's so incredible. And I believe we're here. I believe within myself to the best of my ability, based on the revelation that we've been given through the study, through the diligence of the Spirit leading. But by no means have I ever received a thus saith the Lord. But oh my goodness, this is incredible. This is truly awesome. Okay, so get ready. We're going to be delving into this. It won't be as long, and you guys will already be aware, but it won't be as long as our last few, because these were going right through all of the end of days, just laying it out without even going too deep. So take a deep breath. Let's get started. Anybody that's new to this ministry, if you've come at this late in the game, God bless you. Welcome. And you can track this. You'll be able to follow some of this, even though you won't fully understand how we got there and what preceded and put it all together. You can definitely still watch. But if you really want to get a grip and a grasp on what we're talking about here, you're going to hear some crazy things that you've never heard before. And so what you can do is you can always go to ministryrevealed.com, go to the menu and click on intro series, or come to the playlist right here on YouTube and come to this playlist right here, Intro to the End Times. When you do, it's going to bring up, I don't know why it always has to reset. Years in this ministry, from the Gospels. Always reset. I don't even have that much open. Anyways, okay. So when you do, it will bring you to this playlist. There was 15 videos in here, and they're all awesome. But what we always recommend is these first 4 teachings right here. This first one is a 22-minute intro that will give you little tidbits and insights to prepare you for what's coming in the next 3. The second one is a 30-minute Bible study. Okay, just a 30-minute introduction Bible study on what we call who the Gospels are speaking to. You're going to realize that the differences within the synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke reveal the end of days. That in Luke, Jesus was going to the cross. He was arrayed in a gorgeous robe, which means white, radiant, beautiful in the Strong's Concordance. That's like a bridal gown. But in Mark, he was arrayed in purple, and in Matthew, he was arrayed in scarlet. Well, purple and scarlet are the two colors the woman riding the beast is wearing in Revelation chapter 17. Funny how that works, right? And why? Because what you're going to realize is Matthew, Mark, Luke, in the end, is Luke, Mark, Matthew. It's not all about Matthew and taking a little bit from Mark and Luke to fill in the picture. It's the revelation that all three of them reveal the truth of everything that's taken place. They reveal the end of days. All of their differences are because they're speaking to three different groups of people. Luke is pre-trib, Mark is mid-trib, and Matthew is post-trib. It's all true. And now the part that really gets people saying, no way. Once you realize this and that the focus isn't all on Matthew and everybody thinking 7 years because of Matthew, once you realize the truth, you'll realize that the end of days is actually 14 years. It's 14 years in a short period of time called above. You see, if you're new and you saw what I was talking about here in the beginning, this is the big picture of all creation and it's the picture of the end of days. What's going on during the first 7 years? Nothing that's visual, nothing that we see and that we know and fully understand by saying, oh, this is it, we're in the end of days. But in the last 50 days, okay, that play out in this time frame, it's all going to start. But you also notice something else, okay? You notice that there's two counts. There's two sides to the story. There's a sowing and reaping side, which has us in the 14 years, starting already. And then there's the actual fulfillment of a complete 14 years on a Nissan sowing and reaping side. I mean, on a Nissan year count side. Okay, there's a dual fulfillment. There's two things going on, which is why this calendar, this revelation is so crazy within the calendars. Okay, so what you're going to see, and already you must be saying, what is he talking about? 14 years in a short period of time above? That's because we've all been taught from the Gospel of Matthew. And once you watch this 30-minute intro and realize the revelation of the 14 years, you're going to want to come to this one. And this one's a big one, 2 hours and 43 minutes, called It's All Because of Matthew. And why? Just as the title says, because we have all been taught generation after generation from the Gospel of Matthew, we all believe the end of days is 7 years. We all believed that the creation is 7,000 years from the beginning to the end of the millennial reign. The real truth is 21,000 to the 22nd thousand. It's all a revelation of a fractal from creation to the end of days. It's going to blow your mind. But what happens is the end of days, the first 7 that are related to Luke aren't part of a 21 years of tribulation. It's only the final 50 before the 14 years. Hello. Okay? So what you're going to see is that's what Luke's discourse is. Luke's discourse is really about a short period of time that has a pre-trib escape of all these things that will come to pass, and then it represents a period of 50 days. And then you've got Mark's discourse, 7 years of seals, and Matthew's discourse, 7 years of trumpets. I'm telling you, just watch this intro, and you'll begin to understand. Okay? So that's what we always recommend to everybody. It gets very deep. It gets very heavy. We've been blessed to receive revelation, understanding of mysteries that have been kept secret since the beginning. And as I was preparing for this teaching today, I was reminded, like just 10 minutes before, like I had this thought of, you know what? I need to share this with people again. So let me do that. This is pretty incredible, right? For those of you who don't know, I call ourselves 14ers. Okay, I call this ministry, that we're 14ers. Now, as you just saw, why do I call ourselves 14ers? Well, because the end of days, it's the mystery, it's the revelation that the end of days is 14 years. So many, many, many years ago, I started to call ourselves 14ers. So that's why I always introduce in the beginning of teachings that, welcome back, welcome brothers and sisters. And I talk about, 14ers. Hello, 14ers, right? And I do it all the time. But it wasn't because I understood anything in history. I had no idea. I just did it because of the 14 years. And then about a year and a half, I think it was, after somebody had heard me saying this, I received an email about disciples, a group of disciples in ancient Israel back in the early days. And I thought, oh my goodness, what are you talking about? There was a group of people called 14ers, but back in those days, they called them quadridecimin, which means 14ers. Refers to a group of early Christians, primarily in Asia Minor, who celebrated Passover on the 14th day of the Jewish month of Nisan, regardless of the day of the week. You see, they were staying obedient to what they had learned from the apostles, specifically John, but they say Philip as well. And we see that Smyrna was involved and Ephesus was involved. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But what happens is they got persecuted. They were being killed because they refused to stay with Easter on always on a Sunday that the Roman Church did. And they were called Quadrideciman, or 14ers. And why were they called 14ers? Because they refused to observe Passover on any other day, regardless of what day of the week it was always going to be the 14th day of the Jewish month of Nisan. Regardless of whether it fell on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it didn't matter when it was. That's when they would always observe it. And they were persecuted for it. Well, isn't it incredible that the revelation of the end of days is this mystery that's revealed through us about 14 years? Because what do we know about prophecy? I just did a teaching on our sub-channel, Revealing Revelation, about the 14 years, about days being years and years as days when it comes to prophecy. So they were called 14ers because of the 14th day, and we're called 14ers because of the 14 years. And what do we show in prophecy? That days are to years. Isn't that crazy? That the about and 8 days in Luke is the 8th year. That the after 6 in Mark and after 6 in Matthew is after 6 years of seals and after 6 years of trumpets. Days to years. And some of the earliest Christians in the 100s to 200s AD, they were 14ers. And do you want to know what's crazy? Let's bring up this other one that I showed you guys in the past. This one is who were the early believers. It says the early believers had no building, no money, no political influence, and were not Christians. Rather, they had the testimony of Jesus, of Yeshua, and kept his commandments. Well, you want to know what's crazy about that? Watch this. 14ers, okay? Listen to what it says. Have you ever heard of the Quadrideciman? Understanding who these early believers were sheds light on this topic, because he's talking about, the early believers were not called Christians. Okay, the early believers were called Nastrim, or what we now say is Nazarenes. Okay, but these Nazarenes were what? They were the ones who adhered to what the word said and stuck and were strong on the 14th of Nisan being true Passover, no matter what day of the week it was. The early Christians were not called Christians. They weren't called Christians till later by Rome. The early believers in Christ that followed him, that followed the word according to the apostles, were called 14ers. Shut the front door. It's crazy, right? Again, there it is right there. Now listen to what it says. Watch this. This was called the Nazarenes' Call, okay, a forgotten truth. Isn't that crazy? And it's about the Quadrideciman. The Nazarenes were Quadrideciman. They were 14ers. It says, today they are called Christians by name, but history reveals a much deeper claim. Not by Constantine's sword, nor by Rome's decree, were the followers of truth from bondage set free. For long before Nicaea, the faithful stood not as Christians, but as Nazarenes misunderstood. Quadrideciman, they were known with pride, 14ers who kept Passover as their guide. And then it goes on. Isn't that crazy? It blows my mind. I haven't shared this in a while, but I remember when we first came across this, when it was first sent to me, I was in shock, man. I went and told my wife. I was breaking everything down and explaining it all to her. It's such a, like, prophetic. It's such an incredible thing to look back. You look back on this stuff and you just think, man, you couldn't have planned this. It's definitely the Lord's will. It's the Spirit leading and guiding in the mystery of the revelation. Not saying here it is, but a leading in it and opening and being sure we're able to grasp it and see it and catch it and put the pieces together. It's crazy. probably a little emotional knowing the season and time we're in, too. Man, over 8 years of doing this, it's been right about now, maybe in February, I think, it'll be 8 years since I closed down the business of the product I invented years ago. I had shut it down, and I've been doing this now for 8 years full time. Isn't that crazy? If you had given me a million guesses, 10 million, 100 million guesses as to what I'd be doing with my life, I would have never guessed this in a million. It didn't exist. It didn't exist for 14ers. There was no known end of days 14ers from anything we knew. Not that I knew. Craziness. And then, of course, as a little side note, we did a talk on this a long time ago. But if you go search up 14ers, you'll also find that 14ers are mountain climbers. There's a group of 14ers that are called 14ers because they climb mountain peaks all around America that are 14,000 plus feet high. And they call themselves 14ers. Isn't that crazy? It's directly in line. In fact, it's so in line, I'm going to go off script here for a little bit. Okay, off my plan. I don't have a script. I never have a script. Okay, but off plan. Where is it? In Genesis, unless it takes me too long to find it. In Genesis, it has to do with Abraham and his brothers. I did remember that. See that? Even though I haven't gone to it for a long time. It says Terah lived 70 years, and then we have Abraham, Nahor. So Abraham represents the Jewish people, Nahor represents the church, and Haran represents the pre-trib, the Luke group. We know that there's a group of remnant workers from them, a worker group from them, and a worker group from them during the millennial reign. These guys work at least during seals, these guys work during trumpets, and these guys go out during the millennial reign. Okay? But it's also a pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib. So Abraham, we know, okay, related to the father, it relates to the Jews. Nahor has to do with snore because it relates to the sleeping church. Isn't that crazy? It's so awesome. But you want to see what happens with Haran? Listen to Haran. Mountaineer. It's so awesome. It's so wild. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. It was just something that came into my spirit as I was preparing, and I thought, man, let's bring that up, a little reminder to the 14 madness of all of this revelation that's come to be. A group of people were actually called 14ers, and they were the early Christians, before Christians, quote unquote, because they were the original Nazarenes, Quadragesiman, the 14ers. Craziness. I love it. It's so incredible. Well, with that, as we get going into this here today, I want to bring this back up in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. In fact, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, a month or so, a few weeks, a month after the revelation of the Gospels began, it was the revelation of the years that opened up. And it all started here in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Obviously, this isn't where it ended up. We got all of creation now, right? But it started right here. And we go to this a lot. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 is Paul speaking about, 14 years ago when I was here, this period of time and above and these things that happen. But in the prophetic, when you have eyes to see and you could see and you begin to understand the prophecies and how they're revealed and how they're laced throughout Scripture everywhere. The Bible isn't just a third prophecy. It's virtually all prophecy. And we've been proving that through chapters to years, through books being opened, through typologies from creation to the end of Revelation. And this is one of those. Okay? Paul says, I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago. This above is that 50 days that I was talking about if you're new. It starts everything of the end of days, with an exception of a brief meeting the Lord will have with a remnant group that we just saw, that Haran remnant group of mountaineers, 14ers. They're the ones, the rest, not the 14ers, that remnant group from the above group are the ones who are going to remain to serve the Lord. But the pre-trib, those who are in Christ, spirit-filled, are going to be the ones caught up to the third heaven. Okay? It's like a rapture, like the mid-trib rapture, going to the third heaven. And they are the ones who are in Christ, spirit-filled. When do they go? At the very beginning, right at the start. It's the opening scene is going to be, bang, the pre-trib. Tens of millions of people. You notice I didn't say hundreds of millions or billions. I believe it'll be 144 million, about 2% of the population of the world. I believe literally 1.8, because it'll be 8 billion exactly people on the earth. But that's a little separate side note. Okay, what we want to talk about here is this above. You see, we've understood this above, and in fact, you guys know it very well. We just did a teaching on all of this, right? This beginnings one that goes into great detail of the very beginning till about 2 years to the end of World War III, into the first 2 years, the 50 days into the first 2 years of Seal's tribulation. But within this, there's still greater detail. There's detail about a person we've been trying to understand and follow for a long time now. And we're going to see if maybe we found him and see how he fits and see what comes of it. Okay? But we want to build up. We want to build up the understanding of what this all is. So when the 50 days begins, when it starts with the pre-trib, you see, it's right here in Luke chapter 1. In Luke chapter 21, verse 36. Watch ye therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to what? To escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. This is the pre-trib verse of all verses in Scripture, specifically in relation to the end of days discourses of Luke, Mark, Matthew. This is it. This is the pre-trib verse. Now, when are we praying? When are we expecting? When are we watching diligently and praying? This right here. Okay? 6 days from now. Pretty crazy, right? It's crazy to say it out loud when there's such a level of revelation that has come over the past 8 years in mysteries never before known. So, is it a little bit before or a little bit after in this in this range, okay? This is all we're saying. This is all I'm saying. This is the range right here. What do we know? What are we expecting to take place? I believe at the moment of the pre-trib, we know what happens. Iran is going to attack Israel. Okay? This was an incredible revelation as well. So you notice, like I said, all of these pieces, we've got teachings that are hours long on this. We've got teachings that are hours long breaking this down within the discourses and the pre-trib. Okay? What about Isaiah 9? We've got teachings a couple hours plus long on the revelation of Isaiah 9 and what it means and how it connects to the end of days. You see, we've done in-depths of all of these teachings. What do we know about Isaiah 9:1? It says, nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as it was in her vexation, when at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and Naphtali. What does this mean? What is this light affliction? Now, a light affliction doesn't just mean a couple things and a few people will be shot. A light affliction, when you realize what affliction is, which is devastation, a light affliction is like a medium devastation. Probably thousands, tens of thousands maybe still killed that would die in it. Okay, it's still going to be significant. It's not these little tit-tat things that we're watching that we've watched over the years between Iran and Israel. This is a major blow to what? To who? To Israel in the land of Haifa and Tel Aviv. We've understood this. We've taught on this. We've been breaking it down for years. It will be Iran who will bring about this attack on Haifa and Tel Aviv when? Just as we taught in the long form video, right? In the 3-part one. Okay? We know this is happening at the beginning. I believe just maybe even as the missiles are about to launch, bam, the pre-trib happens. You see, we've talked about this, that we're looking at this stuff too. We don't know that Israel is going to attack Iran for sure before Iran launches this attack. But here's the thing. If you're part of the pre-trib that's not going to taste of any of these things, that won't taste of death and will be standing before the Son of Man, you won't see this happen. Hello. This is for the remnant. We understand that this is what's coming next. This is the first thing that happens at the beginning, right after the escape. And it's always going to be Iran. It's absolutely going to be Iran. In fact, all you got to do is do a search on it, right? Iran says it will destroy Haifa and Tel Aviv. They've been saying this for years. And look, in 2025, Friday prayers from IranInternational.com. Friday prayer leader vows to destroy Tel Aviv and Haifa. Iran threatens to destroy Haifa and Tel Aviv and Haifa. Top Iran cleric, this is from 2018. Tel Aviv and Haifa will be destroyed. You see, they've been going for this and desiring this for decades. You notice it's never Jerusalem? Of course, it's never Jerusalem. Prophecy says right here. So why haven't they done it? They've had the capability. Why haven't they done it? Because just as we've said for years, it's prophecy. It is prophecy. It will not be fulfilled until the Lord releases the time and says, now. Otherwise, it won't happen. This is what begins the short Middle East war that breaks out. It begins with Iran attacking Haifa and Tel Aviv immediately after the pre-trib. Now, like I said, might Israel attack Iran first and bring some sort of attack against them? Yes, maybe even America. I didn't think America would, but America's really brewing up to do something. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to share some of that by going through some clips. Okay? So America is really doing something, but I still think it's in support of what Israel is doing. Okay? To really put the fear of God, quote unquote, into the Iranians by bringing in all of this military and bringing in the destroyer or the aircraft carrier and everything else. But I believe it's in preparation, because once Israel, I believe, attacks, or if there is no attack because Iran will preempt, seeing everything coming, if Iran preempts, then bang, same thing. It'll be the pre-trib escape, and the preempt will then take place. And that's the moment of the escape. And in that preempting, it is a Middle East war that breaks out. We know that this Middle East war will last for the 1 week while the wedding is taking place, until the Lord returns as the white horse rider. Okay? We understand this. So what else do we see that comes after this light affliction? Well, we know afterwards there's going to be a more grievous one, but that grievous one is going to be later at the end of the 50 days, at the start of 14 years, at around Nisan 1, when Syria and those with Syria will come and destroy Jerusalem. Okay? Compass them about and destroy them. But after this short-lived Middle East war that will be about a week, we see what? The Son of Man's coming. Again, we have a teaching on this, don't we? When he comes as the light shining in the darkness. We've gone into all the places from Genesis 1 to Isaiah 9 here to John chapter 8. You see, this is directly related to the Lord coming after the attack on Haifa and Tel Aviv and this short Middle East war that breaks out. Okay? Now, one of the big questions within this that we're going to look into answering the best of our abilities is, okay, we know the Lord comes at the end of the 40 days. I mean, at the end of the 7-day, that Middle Eastern war, and he's here for the 40 days as the white horse rider, but what happens to Iran? Where is Iran? How did that Middle East war stop if the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime, the Muslims that want to destroy Israel, right? If they're still involved, if they're still leading, there's no way that Middle Eastern war is going to end. Okay? They've got to be removed. The Ayatollah is removed, killed. The other ones, all those against Israel would get scattered, and somebody else would have to take over. You see, something has to have caused this Middle Eastern war to settle down after what happens. Okay? But we know it settles down, and we know that the Son of Man is going to be here when it says, and the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. This is the Son of Man coming at the time of his birth, but observed 4 months early. Hello? Okay? Observed 4 months early, which would be at the timing of the New Year of Trees. Okay? Right in that time frame. Now, again, did this happen in history? Of course, in Matthew chapter 4 it was fulfilled, right? But we know what was, shall be, right? What was, what is, shall be. Both of them replaying. We saw it we read about it in the was, we saw it in the is, and we know the revelation of it in the is to come. Okay? So again, it's going to be Iran attacking Haifa and Tel Aviv, a Middle Eastern war. Something has got to play out afterwards with Iran in this by the end of that war, and then the Son of Man showing up as the white horse rider. Again, we see this in John chapter 8, as we said. If we go to Luke chapter 21, you guys all saw this, okay? You see the escape verse, and then it says, in the daytime he was teaching in the temple, and at night he went out and went to the Mount of Olives, and all the people came unto him early in the morning. We come to John chapter 8, and it's the same thing. Jesus went out unto the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning, the people, again, he came into the temple, and all the people came and sat down, and he taught them. It's the same wording. It's the same thing taking place. And then what do we have? It's this picture of the bride. Okay, we know there's a stone's throw. We know it's this, Jesus is bent over like kneeling before his bride. Okay, and then what do we see? And the reason it's in John 8 is what we were talking about earlier. Why is it in John chapter 8? John has 21 chapters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. John chapter 8, bang, right there. You see, remember we were talking about 8? 8? You see? Because it's the 8th day, the 8th year that this must take place in, according to Luke. Well, what do we see in John chapter 8? You've got a typology of the pre-trib bride, and what has happened while this wedding is taking place in heaven? We know that this Middle Eastern war is taking place until what? Until the Lord returns as the white horse rider to begin his 40 days on the 8th day. And what does it say? Verse 12, then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. Which means if the Lord is coming and he's here as the white horse rider, that war during that week wedding in heaven must have been settled. Must have been settled. Which to me means something must have happened with Iran, because the Iran-Israel is the whole instigation of all of this. Something must have happened. And that's what we've never really delved into too much before, because how does that play out? How does that end unless the Ayatollah is gone? And if the Ayatollah is gone, who's taking over? Okay? Well, now, let's see how serious it's getting. Let's have a listen to this one.
Trump just told Iran, we are locked and loaded and ready to go. This time he's not just talking. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is racing toward Iran right now. Pentagon confirms it arrives within a week. Meanwhile, Iranian state TV crossed every line, broadcasting threats to assassinate Trump with the warning, this time the bullet won't miss. Trump's response was immediate. He canceled every meeting with Iranian officials and posted, help is on its way. Netanyahu approved Operation Iron Strike after a 5-hour war cabinet meeting. Israel's entire military is on high alert. US and UK personnel are evacuating bases around Iran right now. But here's the key detail nobody's watching. US refueling tankers have been circling Iranian airspace for 3 straight days. You don't deploy dozens of tankers unless you're preparing for something far beyond conventional airstrikes. Iran warned they'll strike every US base and Israeli target if America attacks. Trump responded, we will take very strong action. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan are desperately trying to convince him not to strike, warning of unprecedented regional consequences. But with the Abraham Lincoln moving at full speed and Israel authorized for action, the question isn't if anymore. Iran just proved threatening America is one thing, but threatened to assassinate the president on live television, and every carrier strike group starts moving in your direction.
Everything that we've just briefly touched on is found in this little short. You see, this threat against America, against Trump to assassinate him, all of these carriers being brought in, Israel ready to attack. They are just ready. They're waiting for the support and backup with America there, because you just heard all of these Arab nations surrounding them that are saying, whoa, don't do this. They don't want to destabilize the region that much because of their oil riches and everything else within their countries going fine. So what do you think that's going to do? It's going to cause a big storm within everything there. All of it is going to start to go into chaos. Okay? It's building up as never before, which is my point in sharing this one. This is not the same as before. Neither is the timing. You get it? Neither is the timing of being in the 8th, of coming to the end of the 70th. Never, ever, ever have we been here. And you could say, well, of course we haven't. No, it's beyond that. We have never been here in this type of level, and we have never been here with a calendar, dual calendar revelation, and the prophecies of Scripture that have been revealed. We have never been here before. This is a wild, wild time, and it's crazy to think that within a week we could potentially be standing before the Lord, before the Son of Man, the creator of it all, never having tasted of death, being in the third heaven, being like an Enoch type, never having tasted of death, and being standing before the Lord in spirit. It sounds craziness. But we know what Scripture says. We know what's going to happen. We know at mid-trib what's happening when he's coming with heavenly Mount Zion, with paradise. We know when he returns feet down. These are all things that are going to happen. Whose lifetime is it going to happen in? Right? Eventually, somebody's lifetime. Well, 70 years is a big clue. It's a massive clue. So is the understanding of the count for the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar. You ever wonder why it said it was the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar? Why was that even included in Luke chapter 3? Right? Just in the reign of Tiberius Caesar. Why not just that? That would have been enough so we know the time frame within a span of 2.5 decades or so. You see? But that wasn't. Why the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar? Because it was a major clue. It was a major clue when you have the understanding of the calendars and of the Scriptures. It's incredible. Now listen carefully to this. This is pretty awesome, okay? Listen carefully. Now this is in Israel. They posted this in Israel. This is a big banner on one of the buildings here in Israel. Mr. President finished the job. Now, let's listen to, what is it, a couple minutes almost of this.
Based on President Trump's behavior, usually speaking, again, even though he's not predictable, is that we could have a scenario over the next few days where the whole of the US military is basically there, just outside the gate of Iran. And then President Trump will send Steve Witkoff to send a message to the leadership in Tehran. We are right outside your gate. Would you like to make a deal? This is your final chance to surrender, to have an exit plan. Would you like to give up power? And because we can't really have a surprise attack anymore, there's nothing surprising about the US military slowly building up and mobilizing for like 2 weeks, for like a week or so. You can't really surprise anybody. Everyone can see what's going on right now. But at the same time, what they can do is that they have to basically give a heads up. We're about to do something. So I do see a scenario where the US, just before they take any potential action, they would say, yeah, we're about to come. Do you have anything to say, Khomeini? But there is a risk with that, because if the Islamic Republic knows that we can potentially surprise the enemy, that's what they would say, they might do a preemptive attack on Israel right there, right? They might. But the Israelis are saying, it's fine, we can take it.
So you see that? This is what we were talking about, right? A lot of people are aware of this. So is the military aware of it, that Israel may attack with America, but Iran would potentially preempt. And if Iran preempts, where do you think Iran is going to preempt? Hello, right? Haifa and Tel Aviv is what they want. Okay? That's their projected purpose and goal for decades now. Okay? It's a cat and mouse game, and that's why I say we don't know if Israel will attack first. Okay? We've got this 2010 video from a meeting in 2005 that lays out the beginning of tribulation, as we've shared. Okay? They know that there's going to be a short military potential nuclear is what they said, right? Small nuclear exchange, okay? Limited, not the big ones, but limited nuclear exchange in the Middle East. And we might say, well, maybe that's what really settles things in the Middle East. Well, I think it only settles it in the Middle East if they get Khomeini, or if they can completely remove him. You're not going to have completely devastated big nuclear bombs dropped on Haifa and Tel Aviv and in Iran, right? There'd be nobody left to go there. Okay? That's not what's going to happen. But there would be maybe tactical nukes being used, and it is just as these guys described. We knew this for years, but this wasn't shared with us until 2020. And that's a big deal. Because again, it's like the 14ers thing. We didn't know it. It was just something we did. It was a revelation through Scripture, and we taught on it. And then we find out about 14ers. Then we teach in the revelation of this, and then we find out that there's been a plan for this. There is going to be this Middle Eastern war. Okay? And what happens is, what about when it's done? Right? What about when the 1 week war is over? What happens? What happens after the typology of Zebulun and Naphtali, which is the modern day picture of Haifa and Tel Aviv? What happens after that attack in the Middle East war? You see, isn't Khomeini going to have to be gone? And if Khomeini is gone, these are questions we've never really delved into before in the detail of saying, well, wait a second. You know, when we go into scripture, Iran is still part of the end of days. Iran is still in the picture, but they're not necessarily the Iran we have now. You see, it can't be. It can't be the same leadership, because the Middle Eastern war in Iran, that little first 1 week war after the pre-trib, wouldn't have ended after about a week. It won't end until they get Khomeini and they remove that power that's there of those guys that they have. You see, they have to be gone. So if they're gone, then somebody after the 1 week war has to step into power to be the reigning person in Iran. Because Iran still has play in the beginning of the end of days, beyond just the 1 week war. You see? And we know the connection to all of these things was 70 years. This is what I was saying again earlier. It's not just about it having to be in the 8th year, 8th day as the 8th year, but it also has to be a connection that when these 50 days come to an end, it's the end of 70 years. And that's the revelation of Psalms 90 and 10. Okay? We see it all over the place. We see it in Zechariah chapter 1. Why Zechariah chapter 1? Because Zechariah has what? Yeah, you've been following long enough, right? Zechariah has 14 chapters. Isn't that crazy? 2 books in the Bible have 14 chapters. One is to the Jews and one is to Israel with the Gentiles grafted in, which is Hosea. They both are the only 2 with 14 chapters, and they both are prophetically linked to chapters to years that within their chapters have prophetic understanding to prophecy in the end of days. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible to understand. Well, you want to know what's even deeper understanding? Is you'll notice that Zechariah chapter 1 begins in the 8th month. That's because Zechariah's book is connected to sowing and reaping years. It's on the side of sowing and reaping. Which means what? Which means here's the year where it started, right? It starts at what? The 7th month. So in the 8th month is like right here. The sowing and reaping. So it's going from a sowing and reaping year, from a fall to fall count. And when you realize that, and it just so happens that by the time you get to about the middle of the chapter, you get to about the middle of the chapter. Look at this. I'm about the middle of the chapter, and what do we have? 70 years coming to an end. So it starts here in a sowing and reaping, and in the midst of chapter 1, right in the midst of it, is 70 years coming to an end. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? That's not a coincidence. You see, if these types of things happened once, maybe twice, you can say, oh, maybe there's some sort of coincidence, right? But we have shown it dozens of times, dozens and dozens and dozens. We can show why chapters, why books are laid out the way they are, why the chapters start the way they do and play out the way they do. Compare it to Luke, to Mark, to Matthew within the prophets. It's absolutely ridiculous. You see, that goes back again to the Spirit leading in all of this. It's not just the words, it's the meaning of the words, it's the definitions, it's what they reveal and where they reveal them, where they're spoken about and when they're spoken about in a chapter, which chapter they're spoken in and by who. That's how crazy it is. That's how absolutely wild it is. So you see, we know the importance of 70 years. That's why we've been tracking it for like 7.5 years. Almost 8, well, actually, probably now about 8 years. We've been trying to track the understanding of 70 years, and now we have come to the end of it. The very end possibility is now 56, 57 days away from being over. And it all begins with 50 days left. It's wild, right? So what do we have? These 70 years. And then what happens? The Lord is jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with great jealousy. And then they forwarded the affliction, right? That is now these 70 years. And when it's over, bang, the affliction has begun. That's the beginning of the 14 years. And what is this against? This isn't against Israel, which is Haifa and Tel Aviv attack. This is against Jerusalem. This is at the end of the 50 days, at the start of the 14 years, right here. That is the attack against Jerusalem that destroys it and has them fleeing. Okay, we know this is happening. But we've also talked about somebody in relation to this time frame who must be on the scene, who is a prophetic replay, right? Not a carbon copy, but remember, it rhymes. Prophecy rhymes. We know somebody must be coming on the scene at this point. Okay? We know him from what? We also see it in Daniel chapter 9. Remember, 70 weeks represents what? 70 weeks, 70 feasts a week, 70 years. All you got to do is go back up to verse 2, and you see, according to Jeremiah the prophet, that he'd accomplished 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. And yet people have a hard time saying that 70 weeks can't be 70 years. It just said 70 years earlier in verse 2. And what do we see? In verse 25, this is something that everybody that I've seen that teaches on the end of days, they skip right over. It says in verse 25, Daniel 9, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem. You see? Do you know what that means? That means Jerusalem must be attacked and destroyed if there's going to be a rebuilding. You see, there's an attack that takes place and a commandment to restore and to rebuild. Well, who in history, who in the prophetic picture have we been looking for years to be this one who will make this decree? You guessed it. Cyrus. And what do we see in 2 Chronicles chapter 36? Okay? What do we see? It's to fulfill the 70 years. Verse 21. Okay? Actually, let's go to verse 20. And them that had escaped of the sword carried he away to Babylon, where they were servants to him and his sons until the reign of the kingdom of Persia. Okay? Cyrus comes to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah the prophet, until the land had enjoyed her Sabbaths. Okay? What do we know? The land's going to have to enjoy her Sabbaths. Again, another teaching we went into, I think it's Leviticus 26. Okay? That for 7 years, the land is going to rest. Yes, a group will go back and only the foundation will be laid, but the temple and all of the rebuilding will not take place. But the foundation will be laid. Why? Because even though a small group comes back, the land is overall laid desolate. Nobody's going to want to come back, as we even read in Jeremiah. They didn't want to come back. They didn't want to listen. If they turned from it and just were obedient, but they said, no, we're leaving. We'll stay in Babylon until the end, whatever. You see, the land is going to be vacant. Jews will have been attacked and hunted down before the Christians. Okay? And so what happens here is not all of it instantly and always, right? Because there's going to be this modern day Cyrus. But what do we see? That then it says, for as long as she stay desolate, to fulfill 70 years. So again, getting back on that 70 years. What happens in this? So it's all in this time frame of 70 years. Okay? It's all in this time frame right here of 70 years. All right in here, coming to the end of it. That a modern day Cyrus is going to have to be on the scene. He is the one that is going to make a proclamation to allow them to go back and rebuild in Jerusalem. To go back and build what? The temple in Jerusalem. It says in verse 23, thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth hath the Lord God of heaven given me, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Now, over the years, I have often looked at this as being the typology of a potential Trump. And it's because when you look at the big picture, right now it's not just localized, but we're talking about the whole world. Who else would have all the kingdoms of the earth, right? the one who's the leader, quote unquote, of the free world, it would appear, and has appeared for many years, that it would be Trump. And when you know his background, you know his connection with Benjamin Netanyahu and the family for like 40, 50 years now, probably 50 plus years now. And you know that he's been the one that wants to make this decree. He's the one who wants to allow them to be able to go back and to rebuild the temple. Now, do I believe Trump may still be the modern day Cyrus? Maybe. You know, we've seen these types of things. You know, when Israel became a nation again, and Truman finally signed off after they were what is it? What's it called? Shoot, I can't remember now. There was a term where they weren't fully a nation yet. I mean, they were a nation, but they didn't formally have a government until 1949, towards the end of 1949 with elections. De facto, there we go. It was a de facto government. And then when they had their elections, then he agreed and Truman signed off. And they were so thankful, and they were calling President Truman the modern day Cyrus. You see, because he had signed off as the big world power, and signed off that they were now a nation. Okay? And what did they do with Trump? Trump moves the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to signify that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Well, for him to have moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem meant that Jerusalem already was the capital of Israel. Hello? And that's what we've been talking about. That was the decree. That was what they declared back, as you guys know, in 1950, in the spring of 1950. And then they moved in that spring summer, they moved to Jerusalem, and it became their capital. And that was the springboard for Leviticus chapter 19. So while the whole world wasn't observing it as their capital, the Lord God was observing it as their capital. They were operating it as their capital. This is the revelation of the 70 years. So what Trump did was very fitting of being called a Cyrus type. And then, of course, they make a coin with Cyrus and with him on it. Why? Because the Jews want this Cyrus character to decree that they can start rebuilding and have a decree to rebuild the temple. But this isn't going to happen until the end of days starts. It's not going to happen until this war and all these things break out with Iran. But Iran isn't going to be fully destroyed. We know this because there's going to be a modern day Cyrus. Oh, wait a second. America isn't modern day Iran. You see, this is where I was saying there's always been this big picture look that now it's not just regional, but it's global. Is it possible that this good guy is the Trump that would allow them to go back and rebuild? Well, it's possible. But guess what? Iran exists in the end of days. Okay, beyond the 7-day, that 1 week war, Iran is still going to be here. We know this because of Daniel. Okay, we know this because of the book of Daniel. In the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 3, it says, Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high. Now, who is this ram? You guys remember this? Let's go into this for those that hadn't seen this before. Okay, the ram. Okay, there's a ram, but the ram has 2 horns, and these 2 horns are what? They're mountains. They're mountains. They're peaks of mountains. These are the kings, which are the 7 heads of the beast of Revelation, from which the 8th comes. Remember this teaching. Again, another place where we've gone into hours-long teachings on this. Okay? How many horns are mentioned here? 2, 3 from the from the goat that comes. He's got 1 horn. And then they're all broken. They all stop. And then from among that 1, 4 more come up, and then from among the 4, 1 more comes up. And this little horn is not the one from Daniel chapter 7. These are the horns that are not horns like trumpeting horns. They are mountain peaks. They are mountains. How many were mentioned? 7. And from the 7, an 8th one comes up. These are all what? They are all Middle Eastern nations fighting. Do you know why they're fighting? Because this little guy right here, this little horn, who is the 8th, who is the beast of Revelation, he is the 8th who is of the 7. This little horn, who is the 8th mountain from among the 7, he is the beast of Revelation. And they are battling because of what? It's their Mahdi. They're looking for their Mahdi, right? You see, they may have a Cyrus who will side with Israel for the time being. Until what? Till the Mahdi comes? Remember what we've taught over the years? That the end of days, that in Old Testament, like 2,000 years have played out, and over the 2,000 years that have played out in Old Testament typology, it's in the New Testament played out over 2,000 years as well. So you got like about 4,500 years of played out, but in the end of days, it'll play out as 50 days and 14 years. These things aren't going to take decades and centuries being played out. They're going to be played out over 50 days and 14 years. These things are going to be played out in a much more compact way. So this Cyrus character, even though he's going to be there, it's only going to be for an extended period of time. Okay? He's going to side with Israel, and whoever this Cyrus is going to give this decree. My point in this, even though we see we've gone through this before, what do we know about this horn? Well, about these mountain peak horns. Okay? We know that this one, that the ram that has 2 horns is represented as who? The ram, okay, that has 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. Okay? I believe that's Iraq and Iran. Okay? Media and Persia. So if in the end of days, and it even tells you in the end of days, if Media and Persia are 2 of them, and they're both there, and one of them is a Cyrus making a decree because it's the king of Persia, you see, they have to be there at least for a little point in the end of days, which means after the short Middle Eastern war that takes place over about the week wedding time, whoever comes to power can't be Khomeini. It has to be somebody else who has come to power, who's going to give this decree as the modern day Cyrus. Because Persia, Iran is still there in the end of days. Iran is still part of it beyond the 7-day war in the Middle East that will take place. This is a war that's taking place in the midst of seals during the end of days. While World War III is taking place, you see, they're battling in the Middle East during seals, while World War III is taking place. That starts with an attack by Syria as the first beast against Jerusalem, followed by the bear, who brings World War III to the rest of the world, followed by the leopard, which is Germany and all of those grouped together, probably like part of the World Economic Forum, those guys there. That will be the control center in the end of days. And then who shows up? But the beast. Who is this 4th beast that will stamp the residue and break in peace and has 10 horns? You see, these horns aren't mountains. These are blowing horns for sounding, whereas the horn that he is, which is the 8th as the 4th beast, is the mountain horn. Okay? So in the Middle East is wars beyond the 7-day war that will establish when the beast is now in power. You see, it's this battle that's going to take place in chapter 8 between Persia, right? Between Iran and Iraq and Arab nations, right? You see that the goat is representative of what they called Grecia, but it's not modern day Greece anymore. It says also Arabia in the definition. Okay, we know it's Arabia. It's going to be the northern Muslim countries fighting against the southern ones. And whoever comes out victorious is that little horn beast, and that little horn beast is the 4th beast. He is the one of Revelation 13. And while they're battling, once the 14 years begins, at the attack by Syria, the world is going through its World War III, while the Middle East is also going through its battle. Its battle is to bring about their Mahdi. The world's battle everywhere else is to bring about the devastation, the breakdown of the West, the destroying even of Christians at that point, but essentially the West, and everybody being so devastated at that point that they will be crying out for a savior, and then the victorious Mahdi in the Middle East will step forward, having taken over control and power over there. That's what's going on. You see, that's what's taking place. That's the understanding of the end of days during that first couple of years after the 50 days. And for the ram to be there and the two horns to be part in that Middle Eastern war. Remember, I always mix it up. There's the north and the south for Muslims, right, in the Middle East. One is Shia, one is Sunni. And I should have looked it up before, but I wasn't really planning on getting this detailed into it. But one, they're more prophetic, right? They're more of the radical, and most of them are in the north. Okay? They're the Islamic State and all those guys. They're the ones that want to bring about the end of days. Whereas the ones in the south, and I think they're the Sunnis. I always mix up which one is which, but they're richer, right? The south are far more rich with their oil and their trillions of dollars and everything else, that they have no interest in bringing about the end of days. You see, they don't want to bring it about. Their life is great. You see, but the other ones, they want to bring it about. They're generally more poor. And this is where the clashing in the end of days is now going to come. And this clashing will bring about between all of these battles that they will see. Oh, just go read the prophecies. Go read the prophecies that Muslims have from their Quran. Okay, these things that have been passed down. You'll see their prophetic connection in the end of days. Are they exact? Are they perfect? No, of course they get twisted. Just like their whole book is twisted. But you can get some insight. Just like we got insight after revealing it in Scripture, we then see what the Jews understand for prophecy and what they're expecting, and we could prove it out in Scripture. We know what the Christians are expecting, and we could prove it out, but they've all got it twisted up because they're all missing periods of time. And of course, with the Muslims, it's completely deceit, right? Because it's from the enemy's side. But we know that there's a battle of them from the north and from the south. And from it comes this victor who will step forward. And that victor is going to be the one that we see, who is the eighth, who is that little horn eighth that comes up from among the seven. He is the beast of Revelation, okay? But again, I'm sidetracking myself because it's so awesome to understand. But the key that we're talking about is one of these horns is Persia, which means even before this battle breaks out amongst themselves, how did the 7-day war stop if Khomeini and all these guys were still in charge? The answer is they're not. Somebody else must get put in charge. And my point is that if Iran is still there and somebody else is now put in charge over Iran, why would Trump be the king of Persia, be the Cyrus of the end of days, if there is a Persia of the end of days and a new leader there as the head, as the king of Persia? It seems to make more sense, doesn't it? It seems to make more sense that whoever this person who would come up next in Iran as Persia, as one of the horns, is going to be the one who is the Cyrus that comes first. You see? Remember these horns? For those that don't know, this incredible mystery, when you realize that Daniel chapter 8, that all of those horns being mentioned are mountain peaks, the reason it's such a big deal is because it's the answer to Revelation chapter 17. Okay? In verse 8 it says, "The beast that thou saw was, is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition." We know what this is. After all of the 50 days in the World War III and all of those battlings in the Middle East amongst the Arabs, then the beast gets his power for 42 months. Then he's destroyed at the end of the 6th year of seals by the Lord coming with heavenly Mount Zion. So he is not. And at mid-trumpets, about 10.5 years into tribulation, at the 5th trumpet, when the pit is opened, he shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. This is the beast of Revelation, okay? This is the 8th. And listen to what it says. It says in verse 9, "And here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains." on which the woman sits. 7 mountains, okay? And it says, and 5 kings are fallen, and one is not yet come, and when he comes, he must continue a short space, and the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goes into perdition. Hello. He's the 8th, and is of the 7. That's the answer. You see, they're mountains, there are 7, and there's the 8th that is of the 7, and he is the one who was, then is not, and then is the one who goes into perdition. It is the answer. It is the revelation of Daniel chapter 8 and its connection to Daniel chapter 7. Okay? So now, what about this Cyrus character that we're trying to understand? That's going to be connected to the end of 70 years. Well, you want to see something that's wild? You know, in the Ministry Revealed book, okay, we know that the Laodicean age is the age that we're in. And when the end of days, as soon as the pre-trib happens, it'll all start over again, and we'll be in Ephesus. It'll be the new apostolic age. It'll be the timing of Israel's espousals, which is the pre-trib bride having their wedding during the week. And they will all play out again, but instead of thousands of years, as I said earlier, they'll play out over 50 days and 14 years. Well, check this out. In the Old Testament, the typology of the Old Testament and how it played out is the period of Judah's kings. Well, the period of Judah's kings is when? Right now. We're in the Laodicean age, the falling away, the apostasy age. Okay? But in the end of days, and this is why people haven't understood 2 Corinthians chapter 12, that the church believes, that people that teach on it, they believe that it's going to be happening first and that the beast is going to be coming right away. Why? Well, because they only believe 7 years, and what else don't they know? They don't understand how the 7 churches will play out again in the end of days. So they believe we're in the Laodicean age, which is the apostasy age, which is when the beast is going to come out of the pit and be the son of perdition. And because we're in the Laodicean age, they think this is where it's going to be, because they don't understand how it replays again. Hello. So where are we right now? We are in the Laodicean age, and it will play over again, and this will be at the cutoff at the 10.5 years. Okay? It will be this again, but we're still currently right now in the apostasy age. Well, look at what it says. In this age is a period of what? 2 Chronicles. So there's this connection to 2 Chronicles. This is 2 Chronicles. This is, in fact, the end of 2 Chronicles. And in this end of 2 Chronicles, we have a connection to 70 years coming to be fulfilled, and a typology of a modern-day Persia, of a modern-day Cyrus, who's going to step forward and make a decree, it would appear. Okay? What did Cyrus decree? Okay? Everybody knows the story of Cyrus. I mean, even the world. This is what's so awesome, is that by calling Truman a Cyrus, by calling President Trump a Cyrus, what does it do? It brings light to Scripture, right? It was Cyrus the Great who made this decree to allow them to go back and to rebuild. It brings back history in the Scripture of history to the world who's hearing, well, what is Cyrus? Why are they calling him Cyrus? I'll guarantee you people went up and searched up what Cyrus was all about, only to find out it was all biblical, okay? So I wonder how many people that affected for good, for change in their lives, right? To come to Christ. So let's look up the word foundations, okay? We see it come up twice. Now, what you come to realize is that Cyrus made the decree to allow them to go back and to rebuild. But in Cyrus's day, do you know what got accomplished? What was completed? The foundations only. You see, this is from what, an account from Josephus, I think. It says, I have given, it's about what Cyrus had wrote, okay? A letter from Cyrus to the Jewish people is described by Josephus. I have given leave to as many of the Jews that dwell in my country as please to return to their own country and to rebuild the city and to build the temple of God in Jerusalem on the same place where it was before. I have also sent my treasurer, that guy, and Zerubbabel, the governor of the Jews, that they may lay the foundation of the temple. Okay? And when you go do research, we'll talk about this later, you find out that in his day, he didn't actually rebuild the temple. He only, in his decree, the only thing that ended up getting laid was the foundation. And if we come to Isaiah 44, we see here in verse 28 that saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be rebuilt, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. Interesting how they're kind of divided by a semicolon and the word and, right? We know our whole comma and story, right? This is a semicolon and. That's because we know the foundation will be laid, and at trumpets, then the temple, in trumpet judgments, the temple will be laid. So, again, you see, Cyrus is being called the Lord's shepherd. So, do we account this potentially to Trump? Again, I'm not saying Trump is out of the race for the potential end of days Cyrus, especially when you understand the history of Trump with Jerusalem, with the leadership, with his working to get them to be able to do a peace deal there so that they could rebuild the temple. Okay, I'm not saying he's out of the picture fully, but as what I have been saying is that as we look at this deeper, that somebody has to be in charge in Iran after the short war. Somebody must be in charge because Iran is still there as one of the heads of the beast that's building in the Muslim nations until the beast comes to power among them. Which means there has to be somebody there who is a lead. Okay? So we know that there's this Cyrus coming. We know he's Iran. And the Lord is calling him his shepherd. Okay? Now, what else do we know? Well, if we go to first Ezra chapter 1, we're seeing this proclamation, right? It says, now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus the king, and he made a proclamation, okay, that he would be given the kingdoms of the earth, okay? See, again, now when you read something like this, right? It says, thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and hath charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Okay? This is what still tentatively is what still makes me think potentially Trump, because I don't see how Iran is going to be over the kingdoms of the earth. Okay? But again, what do we know? These things will rhyme. Okay? It's not going to be an exact carbon copy. They're going to rhyme. We know there is an end of days Cyrus making a proclamation at the time of this time frame of 70 years coming to an end. Ezra chapter 2. Look who comes on the scene now. Okay? What's going to happen is we know that this attack will have happened. Many Jews will have scattered. They're not going to be staying in the midst of all this. They're going to flee. And when a group is going to be in this decree, once this attack and all these things have settled, there will be this decree to allow them to go to rebuild. Does that mean all Jews, everybody's going to start going back to Israel to rebuild? No, of course not. That's what we were talking about earlier. It's going to be the same typology in Jeremiah where he says, if you go back and you do this, or if you're obedient, you'll be able to go. And they're like, no, there's just been these attacks already, back-to-back attacks, all of this Middle Eastern war breaking out again. Forget it. We're out of here. And they're not going to be coming back. So will a small group go back to be able to rebuild? Yes. But it's not going to be where the land isn't at rest because they're going to be all over the place again. It's just going to be a remnant, a group of them brought back that will be allowed to rebuild. Okay? And who do we know is part of this mix? Zerubbabel, for which we know there is a modern day Zerubbabel who's going to lead them in the end of days to rebuild. Okay? So now we go to Ezra chapter 3. And we see this conversation of when the 7th month came. Now, do I believe this is going to be them being gathered back? The decree will have been made earlier, of course. And now in the 7th month, does this mean that it's again going to be prophetically in the 7th month? Maybe. But it doesn't mean that it has to be, okay? It doesn't mean that just because it's here in the 7th month that it's going to be again in the 7th month in the end of days. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Okay, because we know this decree is going to be sometime in the 70th, And now this would be in the 71st, okay, in 6 months into it, and they're going back. Okay, a decree and a bunch will be able to go back. Okay, which means somebody's decreed and allowed them and is settled with them that they're able to go back. You see what's going on here? There has to be some sort of settling that is allowing them to go back among these Arab nations. There's no way that's going to happen if Khomeini and those guys were still in charge, you see? And look who's going back and who's leading them. It says, then stood up Jeshua, or Joshua, right? Yeshua, the son of Josedek, and his brethren the priests. That's kind of like the Son of Man and the workers, right? But we also know Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is going to be the one in charge of overseeing the rebuilding of the foundation, and in the future, the temple that will come too. And even though we see Yeshua, Joshua, Yeshua type here, we don't believe that the Lord is remaining during all of seals, okay? This is, again, one of those typology things that we've talked about over the years. The Son of Man, the Yeshua, Joshua, Yeshua type, is going to come back again at the end of the 6th year of seals. But in the beginning, he's not staying during, the first half of seals. Prophecy is revealed that he's only here for 40 days, okay? So we have a prophetic typology, but it doesn't mean that he's here all the way through, okay? But we do know he's here at 40 days, right? We do know there's a remnant group that are the priests, right? The remnant that of the Luke company that are the priests, the workers that are going to serve the Lord, okay? So what else happens? Well, when we go to Zechariah chapter 1, we know when this destruction comes. We know the Lord is jealous and displeased, and it's the affliction that started. When we go to 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 37 and 38, we see an incredible piece of prophecy. Now, again, the years we understand because of prophecy. Am I saying it's going to all complete in these months as it's explaining? No. But the years, they're absolutely laid out. Okay? In 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 37, 38, it says, in the 4th year was the foundation of the house of the Lord laid. And it says, in the month of Ziph. We know it's going to be laid in the 4th year. Okay? It'll be completed in that 4th year. And then what does it say about the rest of the temple? And in the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, was the house finished. So what do we know is going to happen? The foundation is going to be laid in the midst of seals. In that 4th year, let me show it to you on the calendar to help some of you guys see it. Okay? In the 4th year, right here, the foundation is going to be laid. And then you've got what? And then it says in the 11th year. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's the 11th year. In the 11th year, the temple will have been complete. Well, that's exactly what prophecy is taught. They're going to start rebuilding the city streets and temple on the foundation that's laid in seals. And when they complete it, it will be completed in the 11th year. Hello. You see, we've understood these things. So again, when is the foundation laid? In the midst of seals. And when we go to Zechariah chapter 4, which what? Zechariah chapter 4 is chapters to years. Here's Zechariah chapter 1, right? And the 70 years is in the midst of the chapter of chapter 1. So when you go to Zechariah chapter 4, we should then, whoops, I'm too far up. Okay, Zechariah chapter 1. In the midst of Zechariah chapter 1, 70 years comes to an end. If we go to Zechariah chapter 4, we should see the conversation about the foundation being laid. And that's exactly what we find. And who's laid the foundation? Zerubbabel has. It's almost like the Lord, like the Joshua Yeshua type has vanished. And if you go to chapter 3, you see Joshua, Yeshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right side to resist him. Hello. You see? He's the Jesus type. He is the Yeshua Jesus type. And the rebuilding has now taken place by Zerubbabel. He is the one that laid the foundation. And it says in Zechariah 4:9, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it. Finish what? Finish the house. Okay? And again, it says, For who hath despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel. With those 7, they are the eyes of the Lord, which run to and fro through the whole earth. See, he's being watched over. Okay, he's being protected and watched over, which means we know that a modern day Cyrus, you're probably wondering where I'm going with Zerubbabel, right? Some of you, anyways. But it's a modern day Cyrus who decrees the modern day Zerubbabel to go and rebuild. And the modern day Zerubbabel is the one who's going to lay the foundation in that 4th year. The question is, who is the modern day Cyrus? And do we understand who the modern day Zerubbabel is? Well, you guys know who I think Zerubbabel is, and we're going to talk about him again right towards the end. But what about the modern day Cyrus? Okay? What about him? We know that Joshua Yeshua, right? When he gets his crowns of gold. This is in Zechariah chapter 6 because it's prophetically a picture of the Lord coming at the end of the 6th year of seals. He is Yeshua, the high priest and king. And who is the branch? Who is the branch that's going to build the temple? Okay? Even he shall build the temple of the Lord. Who's going to rebuild the temple? The high priest? Yeshua Jesus? Of course not. It's going to be the Zerubbabel who it said would finish it. He laid the foundation and he's going to finish it. And then the council of peace will be between them both. It will be between Zerubbabel and Joshua, Yeshua, the high priest and king. That's pretty crazy, right? Why? Because as you guys know, they are the 2 witnesses of the end. They're the 2, the oil is being poured into. They're represented as whoever the modern day Zerubbabel is. And of course, the Lord coming at the end of seals, at the end of the 6th year of seals, as high priest and king, as Yeshua, Joshua, high priest and king, the Melchizedek type. That's the point, as you guys know, as we taught in the mid one, when the Jews are looking for that period. Okay, this is that point. This is where we are now. Cyrus. Who's the Cyrus that's going to declare the Zerubbabel to go and rebuild? And can we potentially grasp who the modern day Zerubbabel is? The modern day Zerubbabel would have to be somebody on a global scale, intricately involved in the details of peace and these things in Israel and in Jerusalem and with the Muslim nations, already working with the Prime Minister of Israel, most likely with America as well, and certainly with the Middle Eastern nations, and would have to be in part of the agreement with whoever this modern day king of Persia, Cyrus, is, who would take over Iran. Okay? It's not just going to be some schmuck off the road saying, hey, you're a builder. You know how to lay foundations and start this process. You go ahead and do it. No, we know it's going to be somebody serious, somebody involved in the mix of all of this. Okay? So who is this Cyrus? Who's this Cyrus that's going to lay the foundation? You see, this Cyrus who's going to decree this to get the foundation laid is what? Only, as I said before, it says, based on the biblical account in the book of Ezra, it is accurate that only the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid during the reign of Cyrus the Great. You see, this is important. This is a big thing to understand in prophecy, because it's the evidence that this modern day Cyrus has to come somewhere in this time frame right in here. It has to be. Because we know prophetically that the foundation, the physical foundation and the spiritual foundation, are being laid during seals. We know that in the end of days, in the final 7 years of trumpet judgments, after the 7 years of seals, we know the temple is then being rebuilt, and it's going to be finished in the 11th year. You see, we didn't discover 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 37, 38, until after the revelation, years after the revelation of the 14 years, and when the foundation would be laid before the temple would be built and the wall and so forth during trumpets. You see, the process is foundation first, wall and temple in second, and finally, at the end, during the millennial reign, the gates through which everybody will come and worship the Lord. That's the foundation, which represent the apostles, which worked during seals. It represents the 144 that represent the wall, while the temple and everything is being rebuilt and the wall is being built during trumpets. And finally, the tribes, who will be the gates through which everybody will enter during the millennial reign. It's absolutely incredible. We've known this. We know it must be in the midst of seals that the foundation is laid, which is the evidence that if there is a modern day Cyrus, he's not showing up over here. He's not showing up at the end of the story. He's not showing up in the middle of the story, but he's got to show up somewhere close to the beginning of the story. Because it's the modern day Cyrus that decrees the foundation. And during his reign, only the foundation is laid. Because we know the beast shows up. The beast shows up, everything is thrown out the window, everybody's going crazy, and they're fleeing again. See? The modern day Cyrus must be in the picture. So let's have a listen to this. Let's have a listen to a little under a minute of this piece right here. Listen carefully.
Question: when Iran is free and Pahlavi returns, do you think Iran will sign to be part of an Abraham Accord? So no, it goes beyond that. They've already been.
Let me slow this down. I don't know what speed I had it on. I want you to listen to this carefully, so I'm going to go just at normal speed. Okay? So the person asked, it says it right here. So he's got a question being asked of him. When Iran is freed and Pahlavi returns, okay, we're going to talk about who that is. Do you think Iran will sign to be part of the Abraham Accords? Okay, now remember, it's the southern nations. Hello. It's the southern Arab nations that signed this Abrahamic Accord, okay? Now, listen to what he says. He says no. Now listen to what he says.
Been discussions between Netanyahu and the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. The Abraham Accord is between the Arabs and the Israelis. The next stage is the Cyrus Accords, and Netanyahu and the Crown Prince have been pushing for this. The Cyrus Accords will basically include Iran, the new Iran, into the Abraham Accords. So yes, technically they'll be part of it, but beyond.
There you go. What did we just hear? Have we heard any talk about Cyrus Accords until January? I haven't heard Cyrus Accords anywhere until this January. This was the one that was sent to me. It was posted in the forum. So don't forget, anybody who hears this, if you still want to join us in the forum, it's free. Just go to ministryrevealed.com or click the link in the description box under the videos. It takes 5-10 seconds to sign up, and you can join us in there. 1,400 people from all over the world, like-minded brothers and sisters, watching and praying, diligently seeking and searching, news, events, all sorts of things going on in there. So this was posted in there. Now, of course, why is this a big deal? We're now hearing about the Abraham Accords. Or, sorry, not Abraham Accords, but Cyrus Accords. Pray tell, I was telling my wife this the other day, what do you think will be in the Cyrus Accords? What do you think is going to be written into the Cyrus Accords? Okay? Let's have a look at some of these things. Okay, look at what it says here. So it says, exiled Iranian crown prince. Okay, I'm going to show you this guy in a second. We're going to hear a little bit. So exiled Iranian crown prince Reza Pahlavi. Okay, this guy right here. You've probably seen him if you've been watching some of the news online. If you've been watching Tubi, whatever that is, TV one, you'll see this guy. I don't know if they've been showing him much on the news. I don't generally watch regular news, but if you've been watching and following prophecy, you've seen this guy's face pop up. Do you know he was even declaring while they're protesting and doing all these things in Iran? He told them to keep going. He said, remain in groups, do it safely, don't go on side streets, go to the main streets, stay together in groups, and nobody go home. Keep pushing until we've accomplished it. Because why? Because they've never been this close before. And when was the last time you saw this guy popping his head up declaring these types of things? When was the last time? I think I saw this guy once, maybe a couple or so years ago, and that was it. This guy is now everywhere and having discussions, having panels, talking to people all over the place. He is the eldest son of the former Shah of Iran when they sided with the West, when everything was fine before the Islamic State took over. Okay? He is the eldest son. And he is the one, brothers and sisters, who's going to take over. And guess what? He's the one that is declaring and is making this Cyrus Accord so that a post-Iran Islamic Republic regime and Israel, okay? It'll be the Cyrus Accords between a post-Islamic Iran and Israel. Who's putting it together? This guy right here. Are you ready for what he says? Are you ready for what this guy talks about? He's telling you. He's not even hiding it. He's not saying the exact words of it's going to be in the deal, but I promise you it's going to be in the accord. Listen to what this guy says.
The game changer is enough is enough. The game changer is these people deserve better. And they have proven that unlike this regime that hates the Western world in particular, and particularly the United States, that wants to wipe off a country off the map of the world, we as Iranians are committed to a different future. I went to Israel 2 years ago to show that we are the descendants of Cyrus the Great, who 25 centuries ago helped Jewish slaves be freed from the Babylonian government, helped them rebuild the temple in Jerusalem.
Hello.
A country that in the Second World War period gave refuge to Jews escaping the tyranny of Hitler. A country that, unlike this regime, wants to have cordial relationship with the state of Israel and the rest of our neighbors. A country that holds high in our principles and values the first Declaration of Human Rights that Cyrus the Great provided, that was inspiring people like Thomas Jefferson and was encoded into the American Bill of Rights and Constitutional Declaration of Independence. We have pride in that. And the children of Cyrus are now telling you that we are committed to that. That's when I talk about the Cyrus Accords is in that spirit. This is not me saying it. This is our nation, its culture, its national identity. And this is your truest friend that is now being clobbered, as you saw in that video, by a regime.
See, you heard it all, brothers and sisters. You heard it right there. Within the Cyrus Accords, it is the Cyrus the Great. We are the people of Cyrus who allowed you to go back and sent you back to rebuild your temple. Brothers and sisters, this is the guy taking over. That's what I was building to. This is the guy I was touching on in a previous talk. This guy is going to be the one who takes over after the Islamic regime. You see, when that short Middle East war happens, we've never had a detailed understanding of, oh, okay, we understand it's a 7-day Middle Eastern war during the 7-day wedding. The Lord returns. We know it will have stopped. And then the 40 days of the Son of Man. Okay? And then the Son of Man is gone. There's about 3 days, the compassing about of Jerusalem. There's the anointing of the disciples, the 14ers, right? That remnant group. And they will go out from Jerusalem, and then Jerusalem, having been compassed about, will be destroyed. Okay? Well, what about what happens after that war? How does it suddenly settle down? What stops the Islamic State from attacking and doing more things against Israel and Jerusalem at that time? Well, of course, they have to be defeated. And if defeated, somebody's got to take over. And whoever takes over means that Iran is still there, is still in play, is still part of the end of days, just as Daniel 8 is telling us. And within it, there would then have to be a Cyrus. And this Cyrus would have to be somebody who's siding with the West and with Israel as a Cyrus that would have a decree to allow them to go and to rebuild. Ta-da! There he is. And I don't know if we heard it in one of the other ones, or if we just touched on it in this one, but he has been in talks. Listen carefully. He's been in talks with Netanyahu for the past 2 years on these Cyrus Accords. They've already known that eventually they would get rid of this leadership in Iran, and somebody would have to take over. And he's the guy with Cyrus Accords as a people that would allow them to go and rebuild. Brothers and sisters, even though Trump still has some boxes that check, we know a Persia is there in the end of days, and we've now got a character who has stepped forward declaring Cyrus Accords as the people of Cyrus who allowed them to go back and rebuild. That's awesome. That is awesome. Now, if that's the case, what else can we see? What about the conversation about Zerubbabel, right? I mean, Zerubbabel is the one. In fact, let's go back over here into Ezra chapter 2, right? Cyrus is the one that's giving the instructions to Zerubbabel to go and gather people and bring them to rebuild. Well, if you look at the definition for Zerubbabel, listen to what it says. Sown in Babylon, okay, because he's what? He's a descendant from Babylon, but he's what? He's Jewish. He's a Jew born in Babylon. He's a Jew born in Babylon. So the question is, where is the end of days Babylon? Hold on, don't get too ahead of ourselves. Is it just, again, is it another place in the Middle East, right? Is somewhere over there in Iraq again, and they're all going to be captive temporarily in Iraq? Or is there something else? Is there the head of gold? You see? What if we go to Daniel chapter 2? Now, when the head of gold in the Nebuchadnezzar dream, when the head of gold, okay, the image's head was of fine gold. Now, are we to believe that that's somewhere in America? You know, is there an attack on Babylon and Babylon still exists? Of course. Of course there is. Because whoever this head of gold represents, when it's destroyed, it's the first thing that loses. And then you have what? The silver. And what is the silver of the arms, right? And belly. Okay? His breast, and his arms of silver. Well, what are they? That's Media Persia. So what about the head of gold? Well, the head of gold is supposed to be, again, the head of Babylon, right? The leader. You see that with Nebuchadnezzar. It's Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Well, is it supposed to be Iran again or Iraq? How is it Iraq? You see, it still leaves us scratching our head, but at the same time, all of this is supposed to represent Middle Eastern stuff. But if by chance there is still a global view of this gold image, right? If Babylon is essentially all over the world now, meaning it could be the West, it could be the Middle East, because the Middle East ones are going to be what? Coming up in power. They're the ones that are going to be taken over during seals in the end of days. It's going to flow to them. They're going to be the ones ruling and going after Christians and Jews and beheadings and all of that. The Western reign is over. So could it be that modern day Babylon as the world and the one who's leading it is in America, and that the reason for the image of gold, even in the prophetic, is because it represents somebody who represents gold, and it's the first one to be hit? Remember the bust, right? The image, the head of Trump, that was all done in gold, right? It was a bust done in gold. Could it be then that if the arms and breasts of silver, being Medium Persia, are then coming to power, that something has happened in America? Now remember, it doesn't mean it's all America. Babylon is a city, okay? But it's the representation of it in the world as everything's beginning. That would mean, on a global scale, that America or a major city in America could be the representation of Babylon as everything begins, before it shifts in the end of days to being more specific in another region. You see, because the head is gone. The head is gone. That's the first attack. That would be that attack that removes that power that would be in the West that may represent America. Now, why do I bring this up? as we bring this to a close, because Zerubbabel is somebody who's Jewish but born in Babylon. And in a prophetic end of days scenario, when we look at the world and the world power where everybody wants to go to, America fits the bill of a modern day Babylon. Okay? But Babylon isn't the entire country. Babylon is a city. So is there a picture of America as Babylon, like the East Coast, like America? Like New York, and all of that, right in that area of New York where they all came in on. You see, where so many of the immigrants from the creation of it till now come through into America. Could it be that is the Babylon that we're in now, in the present day and age, before it's attacked and destroyed, not all of America, but what represents Babylon in America, being, say, New York and the surrounding, that's the Babylon that's destroyed before what? Before the Middle Eastern Babylon, before the Middle Eastern takeover that comes in the end of days. That would seem to suit a picture of New York, of Trump being from New York, of the bust of gold that was done of him, and of a modern day Zerubbabel being from Babylon, but who is a Jew born in Babylon. Why do I say that? Well, because this modern day Jew born in Babylon really fits the bill, as you guys have heard me say over the years, but I don't often say his name, is Jared Kushner.
White House officials say
is Jared Kushner. And when we understand, it's because of everything Jared Kushner is involved in. And we're not going to get into everything. We're just going to share this. But I've done teachings in the past and this is, again, it's my own personal belief that Kushner may be the modern day Zerubbabel, a Jew born in Babylon, which would make New York Babylon. Hello, which would make New York Babylon, Trump being gold in New York being Babylon. You see, it's not all of America, but the West. And you know the woman, and she's holding her cup, right? We talk about that. You see that in Revelation. Maybe that is the beginning. Maybe that's the attack on the existing Babylon before the end of days Babylon takes over. It lines up with the gold before the Middle Eastern nations then take over. Did you notice that, excuse me, when we were in Daniel chapter 8, you notice that it began with the two horns, right? That it began with the two horns, that the two horns were the ram of Media and Persia. Well, when we go to Daniel chapter 2, the Middle Eastern ones that all start, we don't see it connected to the head of gold, but to the breasts and arms. You see? So you've got the two, and then you've got the waist, right? The thighs of brass, before you got the legs and so forth going down. It's this representation of the Middle Eastern ones, but how is the head of gold Middle Eastern if it all begins with Iran and Iraq being Media Persia? Then who's the head of gold? It really strikes me, and this is just a little side note thing that I'm realizing, is that in the world today, before it all begins, it may be that New York is the thing that's attacked, and the head of gold is removed before the Middle East of the end of days takes over. Now, for that to happen, that would mean it's even more probable that a modern day Zerubbabel is from New York, and if that's Kushner, it makes a lot of sense with a Kushner because of his connections. I mean, Netanyahu stays at Jared Kushner's house sometimes when he visits. Do you guys know that? That's how connected the families are. Jared Kushner, Netanyahu was holding him when he was born. Trump knew him. These families all knew each other for 50 years now, I think. Maybe even over 50 years now. They've all been friends. So, and what's Kushner done? Kushner made a deal, as I taught a couple years ago, Kushner made a deal with the Arabs to bring their Aramco public, and they wanted a $2 trillion valuation. So there was no way people wanted it, and so Kushner went out And he started doing negotiations in London and other parts of the world with these brokerages to take parts of it that would give it a valuation as close to $2 billion as they could. And I think they got about $1.7 billion or something like that. And then, of course, oil started going up and it was well over $2 trillion and even higher. And they were the largest company on the earth at that time because of what Kushner put together for them when they got it to go onto their stock market. A $2 trillion valuation. Kushner put that together for them. Kushner is the one that put together the Abraham Accords. See, Kushner is the one working on these deals for all the area that's decimated with, Gaza. Okay, and all Trump's plan and all that stuff with Gaza. I'm not believing any of that's going to be taking place as we know where we are, but Kushner is the one leading and meeting with all of these world leaders and officials. He's the one who's a builder. He's the one trying to get Israel to get their temple rebuilt, instructed and moved forward on by Trump with his permission. He's the one that's leading this. He is the Jew born in the potential Babylon of New York. Listen to what he's doing here.
One man has emerged as a closer on key foreign policy deals, but he doesn't have any official role in the Trump administration. So how has Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, reemerged as a leading player in Trump's negotiating team, first in the Middle East and now with Russia? Well, let's look back at Trump's first term. Starting in 2017, Kushner served as an official senior advisor in the Trump administration, where he negotiated agreements to normalize relations between Israel and Arab nations, dubbed the Abraham Accords. And he's been crucial in Trump's second term for the region as well, working closely with Special Envoy Steve Witkoff on the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
I want to personally thank both of you, Steve, Jared. It's been long hours.
Now, off the back of this success, Kushner's been quietly working on a Ukraine-Russia peace deal alongside Witkoff again, even traveling to Moscow this week to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. He's emerged as a trusted negotiator for Trump and administration officials tell me that Kushner has a quality few others possess. That when Kushner is involved, diplomats and leaders like Putin and Zelensky know that they're essentially dealing with Trump directly.
They wanted the war to end. They wanted to bring their hostages home.
White House officials credit Kushner's close personal relationships with foreign leaders for his effectiveness as an intermediary. But it's those same relationships, as well as some of his business deals, that have raised concerns over his unofficial role and the potential conflicts of interest they entail. He was asked about this in an interview with 60 Minutes.
What people call conflicts of interest, Steve and I call experience and trusted relationships that we have throughout the world. If Steve and I didn't have these deep relationships, the deal that we were able to help get done that freed these hostages would not have occurred.
Now,
You see, he's involved everywhere. He's behind the scenes, and if we're not paying attention, nobody's even watching, right? He does all of these things. He's working on all these things. He has all of these deals. If New York is Babylon, then Jared Kushner would be the Zerubbabel. Does that mean he's Zerubbabel now and the Lord has already anointed him? No, we'd have no idea for that, right? The anointing won't come until later, right? He is going to be chosen. If he is chosen as the one, when this decree is made, that he's going to be the one to assemble people to allow them to go back and rebuild, Jared Kushner would be the modern day Zerubbabel. He would be there at the return of the Lord on with paradise at the end of the 6 year of seals. He would be the one that would then finish the temple while the Lord is there working with the 144,000 as high priest and king, while Zerubbabel is leading as the branch. That's right. And that's crazy. While everybody else is talking about Kushner being the Antichrist, and he bought building 666 for $1.8 billion a few years back. And oh my goodness, I'm telling you, when you understand prophecy, when we understand what we do, that the beast of the end of days is Arab. They are Muslims. They're not going to be some Western world Jewish man Antichrist. That's not the case. We know what the prophecies have revealed. We understand it. We can prove it. We can walk it through Scripture. We can go into the definitions. We know that Kushner is not going to be the Antichrist. Trump is not going to be the Antichrist. There is no beast Kushner Jewish guy. It is going to be an Arab, a Muslim. That's that battle we were talking about in the Middle East that will then take out in Daniel chapter 8. That comes later on during seals as they battle it out until the Mahdi, their Mahdi shows up, the beast shows up. He will be an Arab, Muslim, Middle Eastern guy. He is not a Jewish guy out of potential Babylon being New York. You see? Now, watch this. If Babylon is New York, then somebody's got to take it out. Okay? How would New York be struck near the beginning as being the head of gold if, when all this breaks out? The head of gold, you see, if we go back to Daniel chapter 2, the head of gold is defeated before what? Is defeated for the Arab portion to start, right? For the Media Persia to come on the scene, which means how did the head of gold fall in its power before Media Persia stand up? Well, remember, Media and Persia aren't officially going to stand up until what? After the Middle Eastern 7-day war, right? That short 1-week war, when this guy gets his power. When this guy comes to power. When he comes to power, if he's the modern day Zerubbabel, that means sometime prior to this, in that, somewhere in there, near the beginning, New York, if New York is the Babylon of the beginning of the end of days, meaning the current one, not the one that will come in and be the one of the end of days, which will be Arab, okay? But the Babylon that is now, which makes sense because everybody wants to go to America. Arabs, right? Canadians, Australians, everybody wants to go to America. They're all fleeing and then they want to go to America. America is like the melting pot, they say, like the Babylon. And New York is the key representation in it. So if the modern day is New York Babylon, then it must also fall. Not all of America, but New York. And for New York to be attacked and fall near the beginning means something can maybe reach it. Listen to this. This is from the Iranian regime that's in there now through the Islamic State. Listen to this. Listen to what they've just done, guys.
By the regime. Now, as I said, the IRGC are not just mobilizing their troops, as I showed you the video, the images, but they have also just done a massive test. The Islamic Republic have just conducted a huge intercontinental ballistic missile test. This is their first ever ICBM test. They launched the missile with a 10,000 kilometers range towards Serbia. Siberia, not Serbia. That was close. Not Serbia. Serbia. Everyone, don't panic. In Serbia, Siberia, with Russia's approval. So Vladimir Putin and Khamenei's team basically cooperated for the IRGC to do this test earlier. They are saying that this is potentially capable of reaching the east coast of the US. So New York, Washington D.C.
There you go. Isn't that crazy? This is the first time they launched an ICBM missile, and this was just posted today. So within the last couple days or so, they just launched their first ICBM missile, which is an intercontinental one, can go up to 10,000 kilometers with the ability to potentially hit New York. What about, you see? Potentially to hit New York, Washington, that area right there. The pieces are starting to show themselves and reveal these connections happening everywhere. Look at this. U.S. strike looms over Iranian leader. See, they don't want to attack and destroy all the people. They want to attack and get rid of the leadership in a bunch of the Islamic State, as many as they can, and then have who I believe may end up being the modern-day Cyrus in place. Once that Middle Eastern war is finished, once that's done, he's in place. We know the Son of Man is here. Things will have settled in the Middle East temporarily until Syria and those with Syria gather together to come about and bring a destruction upon Jerusalem. These guys are there. They're making a decree to allow Jerusalem to rebuild as a Cyrus accord, and then have the Jewish man, the Jew born in Babylon, that New York has now been destroyed or devastated, and the Jew born in Babylon is now the one decreed to allow to go back and to rebuild. Brothers and sisters, it really, really is starting to unfold before our eyes. And this right here, This man right here, what we're seeing, what we're witnessing going on in Iran, the words that are being spoken, the events that they're doing, the things being portrayed, brothers and sisters, in the timing of it all, in the midst of all of this, as we're watching and praying, diligently seeking and searching, in the midst of the revelation of all of these things that had us so excited over the past years, we were building for it and waiting for this time. This is what we've been watching for over a year, about a year, something like that. We have understood this is the time. Scripture has revealed it will be in the month of Aquarius, the 11th Hebrew month, on 11/9, 9/11. This is the revelation that we talked about from the mirror revelation, from the mirror teaching that we did about a year and a half ago, that began to reveal the dual calendar. And from the dual calendar being revealed, the note that was on the side of my bed, which was the 511 equals 911, and all of that revelation. I didn't know what it meant for 6 years on the side of my bed. I just left it there. From our brother Stephen in New Zealand, and he was on a 21-day fast. And what happened? At the end of his 20-day fast, he said, Lord, he wanted to have a part, and he heard an audible. He heard 9/11. He didn't know what it meant. Australia does 9/11. We do 11/9. It was my paper, the revelation on the end of days. It was the piece of paper written on the side of my bed, and it was the revelation of the end of days. Because what is 9/11, 11/9? This is the 11th month of the Hebrew calendar. This is the 9th day. This is the equivalent of the 5th month, 9th day on the Hebrew calendar from Nisan. And what do we get? What do we get? We end up with 50 days to the year's end, and we are in the month of Aquarius, which is represented by Reuben, the man with the pitcher of water, at which point, in the midst of it, the Lord is coming as the Son of Man for 40 days. At the end of 70 years coming, where we have to be in the 8th year before it starts on a sowing and reaping side. Brothers and sisters, like I said in the beginning, we have never been here before. We have never, ever, ever been here before. And we have never seen these things playing out, coming together as they are right now, with somebody standing up and ready to decree the Cyrus Accord with a plan to allow them to go rebuild the temple. Brothers and sisters, I pray this blesses you. I pray this gives you the strength to carry through to the end, as I hope and pray this will be the last teaching. It is a hope and a prayer, not because I don't love it, but because I pray we will be in the Lord's presence, and we will all have our marching orders from there, or we will be in his presence, standing before him in the lowest room of the third heaven, never having tasted of death, all part of the great Enoch group. And if not the Enoch group, part of the Elijah company and Moses company. Brothers and sisters, I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you all. I thank you for all of your love and for your blessings and for your strength and encouragement for us and over each other over all of these years, as the Spirit of the Lord has continued to lead more and more to hear it and to receive it. I love you, and I can't wait till we meet you either in the Spirit or at the banquet after the wedding. I love you again. God bless you. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.